My life changed on the day when the master first looked at me not as a worker, but as his possession. His eyes were cold, confident. He chose me as if he were choosing an object to be used, and from that moment I knew my fate was no longer mine. He came whenever he wanted. Sometimes it was at night, sometimes during the day. His steps were measured, and I knew, if the door opened, resistance was meaningless. He did not need words. Everything happened quickly and without emotion, as if it were his right. Afterwards he left, and I remained feeling emptiness and humiliation. The mistress soon noticed the changes. She began to watch me more closely. She could summon me under any pretext to adjust a ribbon, bring a candle, serve water. But behind her voice hid jealousy. She suspected, but had no proof. In her gaze was a warning. If the truth were revealed, I would pay more dearly than I could imagine. Rumors in the house grew. The women in the kitchen whispered, their giggles louder than a scream. They saw how the master lingered near me, and they needed nothing more. Their words flew like sparks, and each of them could become a fire. I knew these rumors would sooner or later reach the mistress. And then the overseer appeared. His gaze was different, heavy like shackles. He knew what was happening. At first, I felt his silent observation. Then I realized he was waiting for a moment. That moment came one evening. I was alone in the barn when the door closed, and he stepped closer. His words were short. Now you are mine just like you are his. I did not even have time to utter an objection. From then on, he began to come whenever he wanted, taking advantage of the fact that I could not complain to anyone. I found myself between two forces. The master used me because he had power, the overseer because the darkness allowed him, and the mistress watched, ready to unleash her fury on me. I lived in a house where every day became a trial. My body no longer belonged to me. My name sounded like a command, not as a reminder of who I once was. Every day I tried to be quieter, less noticeable. I worked faster than others, was more silent than before. But it did not help. The more I hid, the more strongly I felt their eyes. Sometimes I thought about escape, but fear bound me. Where to find the strength to leave, if behind me was pursuit, and ahead, the unknown? I knew escape could cost a life, but to stay meant dying slowly day after day. I had not yet decided then, but inside me something was already breaking. When I looked out the window and saw the road beyond the horizon, only one word sounded within me: someday. Rumors grew louder. The women in the kitchen did not try to hide. Their eyes slid over me, and each giggle was like a sting. They knew, they sensed, and because of that their chatter only intensified my humiliation. I lowered my eyes and pretended not to hear, but inside everything in me was burning. The mistress also changed. She summoned me more and more often. It seemed she needed not my hands, but my presence. Sometimes she asked me to hand her a ribbon or bring water, though others were nearby. She liked when I stood silently beside her. Her eyes watched me so intently that I felt them even when I turned away. One evening she arranged a real interrogation. She sat in front of the mirror and slowly combed her hair. I stood beside her, holding a candlestick. The room was quiet. Only the creak of the comb could be heard. "You do notice how he looks at you, don't you?" she suddenly asked. I froze. My heart sank, but my face remained motionless. "I do not notice anything, mistress," I answered quietly. "I have too much work. From morning till night, I am busy with tasks." She looked at me in the mirror, narrowing her eyes. "Do not pretend. I see how you lower your eyes when he is near. Do you think that does not draw attention? I lower my eyes because that is what is required. Mistress, I am a slave. I have no right to do otherwise. She slowly set aside the comb and turned to me. In her gaze there was so much venom that I barely endured it. I warn you, she said coldly. If I see again that he lingers his gaze on you, you will regret that you were born. I bowed my head and repeated, I have no time for that, mistress. I think only of work. She was silent for a long time. Then she again took the comb and ran it through her hair, as if the conversation had no meaning. But I knew each of her words was a threat. After that incident, her eyes became even more watchful. I felt she was waiting for a moment. She wanted to catch me at something, to punish me not only with words. Meanwhile, the master continued to behave as before. His steps became, for me, the harbinger of pain and humiliation. He did not ask, he took. His touches were domineering, cold. And I knew, the more he used me, the more the mistress would hate me. The overseer also increased his pressure. He understood that I was cornered. His eyes were heavy, his words direct. Sometimes he threw, now you are all mine. And I knew I had no strength to argue. He came when he wanted and left as if nothing had happened. I found myself between three walls. The master, the mistress, the overseer. Each saw something of their own in me. No one saw a human being. I tried to work even harder. From morning till night I was in motion, so that no one could say I had time for games. But it did not save me. Their eyes did not release me either by day or by night. And more often, sitting in the darkness by the window, I looked at the road. The road stretched into the distance, and in it was my only hope. I whispered, if I do not leave, they will break me completely. The decision did not come immediately. It matured within me for weeks, while the mistress's suspicions grew stronger, and the overseer became ever bolder. I felt that things would only get worse. Their gazes were like drops of poison, slowly corroding the soul. Every day I woke up with one thought: today everything may end. At night, I began to go up to the window. I looked at the road, at the forest beyond the field. It was dark there. There could be wolves or people worse than wolves. But in that darkness there was more hope than in the house, where every step turned into humiliation. In the evening, when everyone had gone to bed, I made up my mind. I hid in my hem a piece of bread secretly taken from the kitchen. I found a clay jug with water and quietly placed it by the wall of the barn. I knew the journey would be long, and every sip could save my life. That night the moon was thin like a thread. I waited until the sounds quieted. The master had long since gone to his chambers. The mistress did not extinguish her candle for a long time, but eventually she too fell asleep. Only the overseer might go out into the darkness, but I knew his habits. After his rounds, he liked to sit by the fire and drink. This was my chance. I rose quietly, my heart pounding in my chest like a hammer. Every board beneath my feet seemed a traitor. Every creak could betray me. I reached the door and stopped. I listened for a long time. Silence. Only the wind rattled the shutters. I went out into the yard. The air was dense, smelling of smoke and dampness. I crouched to make myself smaller and moved toward the barn. There my jug of water awaited me. I took it, pressed it to myself, and went on. Behind me the house remained. I knew, if I looked back, my legs would stop on their own. So I looked only forward. I passed through the garden, went by the old gate. Branches clutched at my dress, scratched my skin, but I paid no attention. The main thing was not to make noise. Every second seemed like an eternity. When I reached the forest, my heart was beating so hard it seemed the whole world could hear it. Branches creaked, leaves rustled. I walked, hiding in the shadows. Inside, everything trembled with fear. If the dogs caught my scent, it was the end. And then I heard barking. Far away, but distinct. I froze, pressed myself against a trunk. In the distance a light flared. A torch. That meant one of the overseers had gone on patrol. Maybe they had already noticed my absence. I dashed forward, almost running. The ground was wet, my feet slipped, but I did not stop. Branches struck my face, tears flowed by themselves. In my chest burned a fire, fear and hope intertwined as one. I walked aimlessly into where the darkness was thicker. Sometimes it seemed I heard footsteps behind me, but perhaps it was only the pounding of my heart. At one point, I emerged onto a clearing. It was lighter there, and I saw the road, long, stretching into the distance. I knew the road was dangerous. Along it a fugitive could easily be found. But the forest was no salvation either. I chose the road. I walked quickly, as long as my strength allowed. The wind struck my face, my hair tangled. At every moment I expected riders to appear from around a bend. But the road was empty. The night seemed endless. I walked, then stopped, listening. In the distance I heard cries several times. They were searching, but for now I was ahead. And then, for the first time in a long while, I allowed myself to breathe deeply. The air smelled of bondage and fear, but in it there was also freedom. I knew everything was only beginning. Dawn caught me on the road. The sky was turning gray, and the first rays of the sun lit up my scratched hands and dusty feet. In that moment I understood. The night was behind me, but the hardest part was only beginning. In the daytime, it is impossible to hide. In the daytime, they would search for me even more fiercely. I stepped off the road and went into the field. The tall grass covered me. Its rustle became my shield. I crouched down, caught my breath, and took a sip of water from the jug. Never before had water seemed so sweet. But my heart gave me no peace. I knew that the house was already awake. The mistress would be the first to notice my absence. She would feel the victory of her jealousy and raise the alarm. The master would not remain silent. He was not used to losing what he considered his. And the overseer would search with special malice. He would not forgive me for slipping out of his hands. And soon I heard what I feared, the barking of dogs. Far away, but in my direction. The dogs were on the trail. I bent even lower and crawled between the stalks. The grass cut my skin, but I did not stop. I had to get away from the road, to leave as few traces as possible. For a long time I walked through the field until I came upon a stream. The water murmured quietly, as if inviting me. I stepped into it to throw off the scent. I walked right in the water, my feet numb from the cold, but this was my salvation. The barking grew quieter. The dogs had lost the trail. When the sun rose higher, I came to an abandoned barn at the edge of the forest. It smelled of hay and dampness there. I hid inside, curled up, and for the first time allowed myself to close my eyes. The sleep was restless, but in it there were no faces of the master, the mistress, or the overseer. Only the road and the wind. I awoke by evening. My strength had returned a little. I knew I had to go further. I chose a direction along the forest, trying to stay in the shadows. With every step the fear grew a little weaker. Now I feared them less, and the silence more. For I was alone, and ahead lay the unknown. By evening I met a woman. She was carrying a basket of laundry to the stream. When she saw me, her eyes widened. I froze, ready for a cry. But she silently looked at me and handed me a piece of bread. Our hands touched, and I felt she understood. She too knew what it meant to be in a cage. She did not ask a single question, and went on her way. That moment gave me strength. If there is even one person ready to help in silence, then ahead there is a place where I will not be hunted like an animal. I walked on. Night again covered the earth, but now I was not afraid of the darkness. I was only afraid of going back. Every step was heavy, but in every step there was something new, freedom. I did not know where the road would lead me. Perhaps to another settlement, perhaps to people who would not ask questions, or perhaps simply into the wilderness, where I could breathe without fear. I knew one thing. There, behind the house, I had no future, no name, no right to be a human being. Here, on this road, even if it ended in death, I had a choice. And choice, that is freedom. I walked, and the wind struck my face. It was cold, but it belonged neither to the master, nor the mistress, nor the overseer. It was mine. I smiled for the first time.